saw me sitting there, the papers on the table. For a second, just a second, her expression changed. Surprise, then gone, replaced with calm. "I see you got them," she said. No apology, no hesitation, just acknowledgement. I nodded. Yes. Silence filled the room. Heavy. "You could have told me," I said calmly. She turned slightly. "I didn't think it would change anything." That line was colder than anything else. Not cruel, just final. I studied her. The posture, the tone, the confidence. She wasn't unsure. She wasn't conflicted. She had already made peace with this. Long ago. "When were you going to say something?" I asked. She sighed. "I was going to handle it professionally. Professionally. Like our marriage was a business deal. Like I was just another decision on her list." "I assume you've read everything," she added. "I have. And," I leaned back slightly, "and you've thought this through." She nodded. "Completely." Of course she had. "I've spoken to advisors," she continued. "Everything is structured fairly. Fair." I almost laughed, but I didn't, because now I understood something clearly. That was the problem. "What happens next?" I asked. She relaxed slightly. This part, she was ready for. "You sign," she said. "We separate cleanly. Simple, efficient, controlled, just the way she liked it." "And if I don't?" I asked. She paused. For the first time, there was a shift. Small, but real. "Then it becomes complicated," she said. There it was. Not fear, but pressure. That night, we didn't fight. No shouting. No accusations. Because this wasn't emotional anymore. This was strategic. She had made her move. Now it was my turn. After she went to bed, I stayed in the living room. Lights off. Only the city glow coming through the window. The papers in front of me. I read them again. Slowly. Carefully. And that's when I noticed it. Something subtle. Something hidden between the lines. Certain clauses. Certain protections. Not for her. For something else. Or someone else. My eyes narrowed slightly. She was hiding something. And suddenly, everything felt different. This wasn't just about leaving. There was another layer. Another reason. And I needed to find it. The next morning, I made a call. Not emotional. Not impulsive. Calculated. "Hey," I said when he answered. "It's been a while." A pause. "Yeah. Something tells me this isn't a casual call." I looked at the documents again. "You're right." Silence. Then, "What do you need?" I exhaled slowly, and said because this wasn't over. Not even close. And whatever truth she thought was buried, I was about to dig it out. One thing that changed everything. I didn't go to work the next day. Not because I was emotional. Not because I needed time. But because I needed clarity. There's a difference. By 9:30 a.m., I was already sitting across from him. Daniel. We hadn't spoken in years. But some people, you don't need to reconnect with. You just continue. He looked at me for a few seconds. Studying. Reading. "You don't look surprised," he said. "I'm not," I replied. He nodded slowly. "Then you're ahead of most people already." I slid the papers across the table. "I want you to go through everything," I said. "Not just legally, strategically." He opened the file. Started reading. Silently. Minutes passed. Then he stopped. And leaned back. "There's something off here," he said. I didn't react. "I know." He tapped one of the pages. "These clauses. They're too specific." "How?" I asked. "They're protecting assets that shouldn't even be relevant in a standard divorce," he said. My eyes narrowed slightly. "Meaning?" He looked at me. "She's not just planning to leave." A pause. "She's planning to walk away with something very specific." There it was. The confirmation. "What kind of something?" I asked. Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he flipped through a few more pages. Then pointed at a section. "Look at this," he said. I leaned forward. It was buried deep. Almost hidden. A clause about intellectual property. My company. My work. My systems. Things I built long before she became CEO. My chest tightened slightly. She wants control, I said quietly. Daniel shook his head. No. He looked at me directly. She wants ownership. Silence. Heavy. Because now, this wasn't just personal. This was calculated. When did she get access to this? He asked. Over time, I said. I trusted her. He nodded. That's how it usually happens. I leaned back, thinking, connecting pieces, late-night calls, new contacts, and suddenly, one question stood out. Who's advising her? I asked. Daniel's expression changed slightly. That's exactly what I want to know, he said. That afternoon, we started digging. Not illegally, not recklessly, carefully, professionally, patterns, connections. And then, we found it. A name, repeated multiple times. Meetings, emails, financial references. One person, a consultant, someone connected to her new position. Someone who didn't just advise, influenced. I stared at the name. Something about it felt familiar. Then it clicked. I've seen this before, I said. Daniel looked up. Where? At one of her events, I replied. After her promotion, a memory surfaced. The way they stood, close, too comfortable. The way she listened to him. Not professionally, personally. My jaw tightened. This isn't just business, I said. Daniel didn't respond immediately, but he didn't need to, because we both knew. She's not doing this alone, he said finally. No, I replied. And whatever she's planning. I paused. It didn't start with the promotion. That realization changed everything. Because now, this wasn't sudden. This wasn't emotional. This was built. Over time. Carefully. Quietly. That evening, I went home. The house felt different again. Not empty. Just temporary. Like a place I was already leaving. She was there. Sitting on the couch. Laptop open. Working. Focused. Like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't just tried to take everything from me. I watched her for a moment. And for the first time, I didn't feel hurt. I felt detached. You're home early, she said without looking up. Yeah, I replied. Silence. Then I asked something simple. Who's advising you? Her fingers stopped on the keyboard. Just for a second. Then continued. Lawyers, she said casually. I stepped closer. That's not what I meant. Now she looked up. And there it was. A flicker. Small. But real. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. I held her gaze. You will. And then I walked away. Because now, the game had changed. She thought she was in control. She thought she had planned everything. But she made one mistake. And now, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was preparing. I didn't confront her. Not about the consultant. Not about the clauses. Not even about the truth I already knew. Because confrontation is for people who want answers. I didn't. I wanted control. The next morning I signed nothing. Not the papers. Not the agreements. Not even the acknowledgement receipt. Instead, I did something she didn't expect. I acted normal. Breakfast at the table. Coffee like always. Small talk that meant nothing. And she followed along. Because as long as I stayed calm, she felt safe. That was her first mistake. By noon, I was back with Daniel. Tell me everything, I said. He didn't waste time. I dug into the consultant, he said. His name is Victor Hale. The name felt heavier now. Corporate strategist, Daniel continued. But that's just the surface. I leaned forward slightly. What's underneath? Daniel slid a file across the table. Acquisitions, he said. Hostile ones. My eyes scanned the page. Companies. Mergers. Takeovers. Pattern. Victor didn't build businesses. He absorbed them. Quietly. Efficiently. And suddenly, everything clicked. This was a setup. She's not just leaving you, Daniel said. She's positioning herself to take your company. The words landed calmly. Too calmly. Because deep down, I already knew. She doesn't understand what she's doing, I said quietly. Daniel looked at me. Or she understands exactly what she's doing. Silence, because both options were dangerous. What's our move? He asked. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I thought, not emotionally, strategically, because this wasn't about stopping her. This was about letting her believe she was winning. Do nothing, I said finally. Daniel frowned. Do nothing? For now, I added. A pause. You want her to continue, he realized. I nodded. Exactly, because when someone thinks they're in control, they reveal everything. Their plans, their weaknesses, their timing. That evening, I went home again. Same routine, same calm. She was in the kitchen this time, on a call. Her voice low, controlled. Yes. Everything is moving forward, she said. I didn't interrupt. I didn't react. I just listened, from a distance. Once it's finalized, she continued, we'll have full access. Access. That word confirmed everything. She ended the call, turned around, saw me. For a second, there was tension. Then it disappeared. You're quiet these days, she said. I shrugged slightly. Just thinking. She studied me, trying to read something, but I gave her nothing, and that made her uncomfortable. Over the next few days, I watched, closely, not like a husband, like an observer. Her schedule changed. More meetings, more late nights, more private calls, and always, the same name appeared, Victor. Meanwhile, I made my own moves, quiet ones, the kind no one notices, until it's too late. I restructured my company, shifted ownership, secured assets, moved things out of reach, legally, cleanly, completely. By the time she realizes, Daniel said one day, it'll already be over. I nodded. That's the point. Because this wasn't revenge. This was protection. And precision. Then came the final step. The one that would change everything. She's filing in 2 days, Daniel said. Good, I replied. He looked at me. You're ready. I stood up slowly, straightened my jacket, and for the first time, I smiled. More than ready, because she thought she was ending something. But in reality, that night, we sat across from each other again. Dinner table. Same as always, but nothing was the same. I'll finalize everything soon, she said calmly. I nodded. Good. She looked at me, surprised. That's it? She asked. I met her eyes. That's it. And in that moment, for the first time, she didn't feel in control anymore, because something had shifted, something she couldn't see, something she didn't understand. And very soon, she would. The day she filed, she looked unstoppable, confident, composed, certain, dressed in a sharp tailored suit, walking into that office like she had already won. And in her mind, she had, because from her perspective, everything was aligned. The promotion, the consultant, the plan. And me, just a formality. I arrived 10 minutes early, calm, quiet, exactly the way I had been for days. Daniel was already there, papers prepared, everything in place. You ready? He asked. I nodded. I've been ready. Then she walked in, and the room changed, not emotionally, structurally, because she carried control with her. Or at least, that's what she believed. She glanced at me briefly. No warmth, no hesitation, just acknowledgement, like I was already behind her. Let's begin, she said, taking her seat. The lawyer started. Formal introductions, procedure, language that made everything sound clean. But beneath it, there was tension, because even though she didn't show it, she was watching me, waiting, for resistance, for emotion, for weakness, and I gave her none. Mr. Daniel, her lawyer said, do you understand the terms presented? I nodded. I do. And do you agree to proceed under these conditions? That was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment she thought would confirm everything. I leaned forward slightly, looked directly at her, and said calmly, "No." Silence. Not loud, not chaotic, just heavy. Her expression didn't change immediately, but her eyes did, sharp, focused. "What do you mean, no?" she asked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't react emotionally. I simply opened my folder and slid a new set of documents across the table. "These are the updated terms," I said. Her lawyer frowned. "What is this?" "Clarity," Daniel replied calmly. She picked up the papers, started reading, and slowly, everything changed. Her confidence, her posture, her certainty, all of it started to crack. "This isn't possible," she said quietly. But it was, because everything she thought she was taking was no longer there. The assets, reassigned. The company, restructured. Ownership, protected. Completely, legally, cleanly. "You moved everything," she said, looking up at me. "Before you filed." I held her gaze. "Before you planned," I replied. Her lawyer flipped through the pages faster now. "This changes everything," he said. "Yes," Daniel replied. "It does." Then came the final piece, the one she never expected. I placed one more document on the table. "What is this?" she asked. "Documentation," I said. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. "Messages, meetings, connections, Victor, all of it, exposed." Her face went pale. "This is irrelevant," she said quickly, but her voice wasn't steady anymore. "It's very relevant," Daniel said calmly, "especially if this proceeds legally." Now she understood, not just what she lost, but what she risked. "You wouldn't," she whispered. I leaned back slightly, completely calm. "I didn't start this," I said. A pause. "But I will finish it." Silence filled the room again, but this time, it wasn't hers. It was mine. Minutes passed. Her lawyer spoke quietly to her. Low voice, urgent. She didn't argue, didn't fight, didn't even look at me, because now, she knew, the game was over. "We'll need to revise everything," her lawyer said finally. Daniel nodded. "We already have." That was the moment, the exact moment, she lost. Not emotionally, strategically, completely. When the meeting ended, she stood up slowly, collected her things, and for the first time since all this began, she looked at me differently, not with confidence, not with control, but with something else. Realization. "You planned this," she said quietly. I shook my head. "No." A pause. "I understood you." That hit harder than anything else. Because it was true. She opened her mouth, like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out, because there was nothing left to say. She turned, walked out, and just like that, it was over. Weeks later, life was quiet again. No drama, no chaos, just clarity. The company was stronger, more protected. My life, simpler, cleaner. I sat in my office one evening, looking out the window. Phone buzzed. Her name. I didn't open it, didn't read it, didn't need to, because some endings don't need closure. They need distance. And as I stood there, in the silence, I realized something simple. And in the end, that was her biggest mistake. Her certainty. All of it started to crack. "This isn't possible," she said quietly. But it was, because everything she thought she was taking was no longer there. The assets, reassigned. The company, restructured. Ownership, protected. Completely, legally, cleanly. "You moved everything," she said, looking up at me. "Before you filed." I held her gaze. "Before you planned," I replied. Her lawyer flipped through the pages faster now. "This changes everything," he said. "Yes," Daniel replied. "It does." Then came the final piece, the one she never expected. I placed one more document on the table. "What is this?" she asked. "Documentation," I said. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. "Messages, meetings, connections, Victor, all of it, exposed." Her face went pale. "This is irrelevant," she said quickly. But her voice wasn't steady anymore. "It's very relevant," Daniel said calmly. "Especially if this proceeds legally." Now she understood. Not just what she lost, but what she risked. "You wouldn't," she whispered. I leaned back slightly, completely calm. "I didn't start this," I said. A pause. "But I will finish it." Silence filled the room again. But this time, it wasn't hers. It was mine. Minutes passed. Her lawyer spoke quietly to her. Low voice. Urgent. She didn't argue. Didn't fight. Didn't even look at me. Because now, she knew. The game was over. "We'll need to revise everything," her lawyer said finally. Daniel nodded. "We already have." That was the moment. The exact moment she lost. Not emotionally. Strategically. Completely. When the meeting ended, she stood up slowly, collected her things. And for the first time since all this began, she looked at me differently. Not with confidence. Not with control. But with something else. Realization. "You planned this," she said quietly. I shook my head. "No." A pause. "I understood you." That hit harder than anything else. Because it was true. She opened her mouth, like she wanted to say something. But nothing came out. Because there was nothing left to say. She turned. Walked out. And just like that, it was over. Weeks later, life was quiet again. No drama. No chaos. Just clarity. The company was stronger. More protected. My life, simpler. Cleaner. I sat in my office one evening, looking out the window. Phone buzzed. Her name. I didn't open it. Didn't read it. Didn't need to. Because some endings don't need closure. They need distance. And as I stood there, in the silence, I realized something simple. And in the end, that was her biggest mistake.